Coming up next on the Retirement Halftime Show, more than 60% of retirees wish they could have a retirement do-over. Their mistakes are helping you plan for your future. Then, understanding your risk tolerance. Knowing how much you can stomach changes how you approach the market. Plus, Andrea Moorhead reports on the Indy mom who's making the loss of her 27-year-old daughter a rallying cry for increased rare cancer research funding. And talking to Purdue's new head football coach, how your retirement plans can benefit from his advice about strategic planning. Now on the Retirement Halftime Show.
You wouldn't play a game the second half the same way you would the first, especially if you have the lead. This is the Retirement Halftime Show, helping you maintain your lead in retirement.
I'm Heather McWilliams. Welcome to the Retirement Halftime Show. Joining us is Alex Joyce with ReJoyce Financial. Alex, I recently read a study from Lincoln Financial Group that said 60% of retirees wish they could go back and do it all over, plan again, start from scratch. 63% said they wish they could have an automatic paycheck given to them every month, right? I think it's a great idea. I hope to achieve something like this as well. What kind of investments would provide people with that steady stream of income?
You know, investments are, to me, right, opinion, right, is that it isn't necessarily the investments in, per se that spin off the income. It's more so a well-rounded financial plan, right? Yeah. Because inside of that plan, there's multiple layers of, negative or positively correlated asset classes. Diversification is a story of asset class. Mm-hmm. Now, when we look at the securities, if you will, or the pieces that go up under that, it could be, dividend, yes, paying equities, if you will, or a good example of kind of that systematic distribution as opposed to a distribution from an equity. No one wants to feel or see their portfolio going down in value while they're taking income out. Yeah. It's kind of like the 4% rule we always, yes, talk about, where you've got your pension, your Social Security, and then you got your bucket of money, and you start taking 4% out of it, and you index it for inflation, yeah, which is an issue today. Oh, yeah. Indexing your portfolio for inflation. Now, let's kick that up a little bit to like 8%. Mm-hmm. Now you got 8% coming out because the cost of living has gone up, and the value's going down, yeah, right? And so it is certainly an unpredictable way to retire today. I firmly feel that this passive approach that has happened in, traditional planning, if, yeah, you will, is a thing of the past. Oh, yeah. Active wins the race today. You have to be proactive about this thing because, again, the variance, the volatility, the peaks, the troughs in our market, the unpredictability. Yeah. It's tough. You need to start early, and it's got to be maddening to you to see these people coming in so late in life and doing it now. And it's like, yeah, having that shoulda, coulda, woulda feeling has got to be awful. Yeah, it is. You know what? And I think that there's always, no offense, but there's always an excuse as well. Yeah. There's always, I'm too young, or I'm too mature. Too busy. I'm too busy, or we'll make the time, mm-hmm, or another day. And I think that this is your life savings. Yeah. This is your hard work. Mm-hmm. All we're trying to simply do is spark a conversation to see if we can help. Yeah. Right? And I think that once we get past that, I'm going to make time for this, and this is a priority, then we can start the building blocks. Yep. I think people also have a fear of cost, and they have a fear of, they don't know what to expect. The expectation isn't properly managed in front of them, and so they simply do nothing. Right. And so, one of the things we built in our practice is a strong process. Yeah. And I think if people know exactly what to expect, they're more, I think that they're more open, mm-hmm, and more accepting, if you will, to some change, because again, change is hard, but sometimes, Heather, it's a decision and something that everyone needs to make. We can't rely on what our parents did because their generation is so much different from ours, right? We can't rely on pensions anymore because, quite frankly, we don't have them. No, we don't. So you are seeing that trend, I think, of these newer generations coming up and really starting to get their arms around their financial future, and that's great. It is great. It's a good feeling. I mean, I think it's, the thing of the past was, again, like you said, the pension, defined benefit plan, those got transferred in defined contribution plans. You are contributing to your own retirement. Mm-hmm. It is personal savings. And so being, again, if you're not going to do it yourself, you have to shift the responsibility to someone else, and they have to be a professional. Yeah. You cannot put a price tag on peace of mind. No, you can't. You can't. And it's nice to have that kind of flow chart that shows you
this is what your income stream is going to look like for the rest of your life.
It's predictable. People have the confidence knowing exactly. It's called income planning. If you've got your Social Security and your pension in this hand, that's $40,000, and you have your lifestyle in this hand, it's $100,000. You got a big $60,000 gray area there. And the question is, how long does that gray area need to be, paying out to make your lifestyle whole? And the proper answer is forever, and that is what we don't know. And I generally tell people, if you knew the bottom line of what your life looked like and what that number was, this is the power of financial planning. If you knew what the bottom line was, could you or would you take some of that bottom line, quality of life, and put it at the top? Would that make you do things or act or change your life to be able to do things with your family or do things for yourself a bit differently? Yeah.
And it's never too late to start this process either, is it?
No, it's not.
It's not. I mean, I think it takes the fear out of it, honestly, and anybody can do it at any stage of their life, regardless of their income, too, right?
That's right. I mean, we encourage and we want people to call in, take that leap of faith, act now, and pay us a visit.
Okay, if somebody at home is watching this and said, you know what, I'm going to secure my financial future, I'm going to do this today, what is the best way to get a hold of you?
Just call us.
Coming up next on the Retirement Halftime Show, Becoming Tayandra Strong. An Indy mom is raising awareness of rare cancers, how she's mourning and celebrating her daughter's life, and later, preparing for possible future health problems. What you can do today to prepare for an uncertain tomorrow. This is the Retirement Halftime Show.
Don't let anxiety ruin your retirement. Get a second opinion about your current plan. Call the experts at ReJoyce Financial today at 317-903-9157 and see if you're on the right track.
ReJoyce Financial gives back with Andrea Moorhead, highlighting the people and organizations making life better in our community.
You're watching the Retirement Halftime Show. I'm your host, Alexander Joyce. With me, of course, is Andrea Moorhead. She is our community impact anchor. And what a story, Andrea. Yeah. Heartbreaking, kind of tragic, if you will. But life is short and things happen. That's why we always stress proper planning, of course, wins the race. So just tell us about how this story came about and the impact, if you will.
Well, Alex, there's so much awareness about breast cancer, fundraising, even medical trials, but there are other cancers that do not get equitable treatment. And there was a local mother who, again, went through a very heartbreaking time, losing her daughter. And so she's decided to turn her pain now, that has become her passion, into a purpose to save more lives.
Yes, I'm a mess, but I'm blessed to be stuck with you.
Family and friends are forever blessed by Tayandra Lachey's vivacious spirit. Her mother, Tanya Adams, says she was a gift to the world since birth.
She had such a giving spirit. She would help anyone possible. She stood on integrity. She stood on blessings. She stood on character. She was on loan. God loaned her to me, and He was ready for her to come back.
Just look how it's just lovely. I've been working so hard to get this down packed, and I got it.
He felt that she had accomplished what He set out for her.
You had 27 years. Talk about your daughter.
Oh, she was what some people would call the life of the party. She would light up a room. She had this laugh, oh my God, that would drive you crazy. Because she would laugh at anything and she's laughing by herself.
Other than having asthma, Tayandra was a healthy athlete. She ran track and played soccer, volleyball, and basketball at Ben Davis High School. The size 6 sneakerhead who worked at Foot Locker was 2 weeks away from her dream career and first flight as a flight attendant, when one night she didn't feel well.
She actually went to the ER because she wasn't able to breathe.
It wasn't an asthma attack.
They found a spot on her lung and her liver, and she wasn't a smoker, so they did further testing and found out it was stage 4 cancer. But it wasn't until a month later that they found out that it was appendix cancer.
You were like, what is that?
It was very new because she didn't have any signs or symptoms.
According to the American Society of Clinical Oncology, the typical symptoms are inflammation of the appendix, fluid in the abdomen, pain in the abdomen or pelvis area, increased size of the waistline, changes in bowel function, bloating, and infertility. Tanya says often the symptoms are misdiagnosed, giving the cancer more time to spread throughout the body, like it did for Tiandra. Treatments like chemotherapy often don't work, and there's no cure. Famed actress Audrey Hepburn died from appendix cancer in 1993.
I'm not losing. I'm still here. I'm fighting.
And perhaps the most prominent face of the disease, ESPN sportscaster Stuart Scott, who died in 2015 after a 7-year battle.
When you die, that does not mean that you lose to cancer. You beat cancer by how you live, why you live, and in the manner in which you live.
While other cancers, like breast and prostate, are more prominent in awareness, clinical trials, and research, public knowledge and discussions about appendix cancer have been relatively silent. But Tanya wants to change that through the Tiandra Tough Foundation. They just held their first annual Tiandra Tough Amber for Awareness 5K Walk and Run to increase education about appendix cancer and press the medical community to prioritize funding for research, create pre-screen testing, which doesn't exist, and ultimately find a cure. Tanya needs legal assistance and oncologists to be part of the team.
Someone that I can partner with to kind of help bring awareness out.
And in the spirit of Tiandra, who gave to others, the foundation is planning its second annual Christmas Gala. Tanya could use some volunteers and financial contributions to continue its mission.
Help clothe the child, help clothe the family, help send a family somewhere to kind of give them a break, when needed.
Right now, Tanya is the Tiandra Tough Foundation, practically single-handedly and tirelessly leading it while still grieving the loss of her mother, who died just 6 weeks before Tiandra.
And that's where the tough part of the foundation comes from, is from them.
And a mother's strength after burying a child comes from the recognition by others that Tiandra touched so many lives during her short 27 years.
When we had her services and looked out at the poor of young people, and when they spoke, as a parent, it's such a blessing to be able to hear the wonderful things that people say about your child.
Tanya's faith has been her comfort.
Her faith never wavered because she knew that she was covered, because she never cried. She never questioned why God put this on her at her age. I was actually there holding her hand when she took her last breath. So that gives me solace that God brought her in, and God himself carried her back home to her rightful place.
Tiandra, I'm sure she's watching. And she's proud of you. How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel overjoyed, because it's like God had entrusted me with this beautiful soul.
2 weeks after her daughter transitioned, Tanya found a note from her left in her iPad.
And I had her iPad every day for the last 2 weeks that we were in the hospital together, and I never saw it.
Tiandra thanked everyone for their support and shared a scripture for her mother. Psalms 121, 1-8. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forevermore. That scripture and her daughter are forever inscribed in her heart, as a reminder that Tiandra accomplished her dreams.
She was about to become a flight attendant, which was her dream job, but she did get the letter, so she knew.
So she was a flight attendant?
Yes.
Yeah, and now she's healed.
She gained the best wings in the house. You can't have any better wings than what she has.
Any better wings.
Better than any flight.
We certainly thank Tanya for sharing her heartfelt story. We hope it has had an impact in your life as well. And if you would like to volunteer as well as raise money for the foundation, you can do so by going to our website at rejoycefinancial.com/Andrea.
Still ahead, the new head football coach at Purdue takes us into the team meeting room. The way he comes up with a game plan could also work for your retirement. But next, your tolerance for risk should change with the seasons. How to step back and take a holistic view of your portfolio. This is the Retirement Halftime Show. Don't let anxiety ruin your retirement. Get a second opinion about your current plan. Call the experts at ReJoyce Financial today at 317-903-9157. and see if you're on the right track.
You're watching the Retirement Halftime Show, powered by ReJoyce Financial.
You're watching the Retirement Halftime Show. I'm your host, Alexander Joyce, and with me today is one of our advisors, Joel Parody. I've been with the team for a while, and it's really interesting to have this conversation with you centered around risk, right? And I think that when we look at risk, or we ask someone, how much risk do you want to take? I think most people really, they don't really know. I mean, they think of it from an emotional standpoint. Like if I didn't know, I can tell you where I'd probably go. If someone asked me and if I was clueless, I'd probably say, well, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much risk do I want to take? I'd probably say 5, right? Because it's right in the middle, right? But then if somebody said, because I'm terrified of heights, you guys probably didn't know that. I'm like, no roller coasters, I've been tricked into getting on a roller coaster once in my life, and I would never ever do it again. And so by just that simple fear of saying, Alex, would you take a helicopter ride from here over to Terre Haute? I would be very nervous. I would be very emotionally scared to do that. But if someone said, Alex, are you willing to risk your principal to make more? I'd say, well, yeah, right? Because I'm very familiar with that risk palette, if you will. I'm palatable to that. And most people, when they think about risk emotionally, they're more with money, if you will, they could be a little bit more fearful. But when it's something that they can relate to or they're familiar with, like running their own business or running their own medical practice or doing open heart surgery because they're used to it, they're familiar with it. For a guy like me, or maybe you, I'd never even think about doing something like that. And so we want people, when coming in and building plans, if you will, and I'm sure you can understand, we want them to be open-minded, number one, right? In terms of listening, right? Because we know this stuff. I don't know what they do, but we know this stuff really well. And so they're seeking advice, professional advice, right? With a non-personal or judgmental bias. And so when we're creating that plan, when we're going through risk tolerance questionnaires, although it may be a little bit redundant, right? We just really want to know, because I think it's something so significant that we want to get right as often as we possibly can. We're not perfect. And again, their palette for risk, right, from an economic standpoint, could change next quarter. And so what are you seeing? I mean, from an advisory standpoint, when it comes to risk versus reward, what are your thoughts?
I mean, it changes all the time.
Doesn't it?
Right? Whether there's a political event that's happening, maybe there's a war going on, people's risk tolerance change. So what we do is we try and ask it a bunch of different ways and try and get it, as updated as possible.
Right. When someone leaves a client, I know that it is for us, when it's very important to manage process and manage expectations. I firmly believe that well-established expectations is a roadmap to a prosperous relationship. And so we, as you just said, we try to ask it a bunch of times, because there is, over the 12 years I've owned this practice, I can't tell you the clients that I established then and then where they are today. That has changed a bunch of times, right? From I'm willing to take more risk to I'm ready to become more conservative. Take age out, right? I mean, the rule of what? The rule of 100 is take your age minus 100, and that's the number that you should have left in equities. I mean, this is kind of the old school thinking, like the 4% withdrawal rule index for inflation, pension, Social Security. Secret recipe missing from there is the pension no longer there. And so this stuff doesn't work. And so asking a bunch of times gives us a better indicator for success, right? It's the risk truly is the secret sauce to the plan, because then we have a foundation of which we can build on, right? And also, having said that, is some of the stress test stuff that we do. I mean, you're familiar with that. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, what we do is we take a look at how the portfolio would do, let's say in the 2008 crash, right?
Would do.
Yeah. What it would do going forward if it happened again, right? Because that is a great way to see how much risk you're willing to take. Yeah. Everybody can take risk when it's a bull market.
You know what?
When the bear market hits, how much risk are you really willing to take?
It's that is emotional, right? Well, you see, and we would do this, and we invite anybody that wants to see this analysis or see this stress test, really to just call and get it, right? Schedule a little bit of your time to see what you look like on the other side of 2008, on the other side of the financial crisis, 07 to 09, right? Yeah. What a bull market looked like based on your current holdings, right? So we take the portfolio, we just drive it right through it, and boom, there it is. There's the real data, because we have it. Right, and I think a lot of hopefully they're getting good advice from their advisors, and a lot of people are sharing this because we're going through some very volatile times.
Yeah.
There is a lot of headwind in front of us. You mentioned political, we mentioned tax reform. These things are real. Yeah. And if you don't have a plan that you can rely on, trust, that supports your goal, now is the time to get one.
Yeah.
Joel Parody, I appreciate your time. Again, you're watching the Retirement Halftime Show. Stay tuned, there's more show to come.
Still to come, the need for long-term care could come at any moment. The 5 steps you can take today to ease your concerns for tomorrow.
Get a second opinion about your retirement plan. Schedule a no-cost, no-obligation visit with the experts at ReJoyce Financial. Call 317-903-9157 now and rejoice in your retirement.
Planning to win. Coaching strategies for financial success. Here's Alexander Joyce and Purdue University head football coach Ryan Walters.
And we're here with Coach Walters, and we're talking about goal setting and expectations. And you know, it's different, but not. I mean, a guy like you that coaches at a super high level, right? I mean, I don't coach football, right? But I like to say, you know, my clients and the public, if you will, they look to me for advice when it comes to finances, whether it's investments or planning in general. And so when we're talking about expectation management, you know, different from my side of the desk than it is yours, but coaching at that level, I mean, that is something that is, for one, it's got to feel really good, right? Yeah. And then for two, there's that level of leadership, if you will. There's a lot that goes into that. I mean, having the trust of your players, having the trust in the confidence to relay your message to them in a way that they've got to feel it, right? Because you expect high results, such as my clients do for me, right? I mean, of course, money is a little bit different than coaching high-level football, if you would, or any sport, but the theme is the same, right? And maybe so, Coach, walk me through what that level of expectations look like, and how do you deliver that in a way where you expect your players to feel it, not just listen to it, but execution is everything. So kind of walk me through some of that goal-based expectation planning.
Yeah, I think goal setting is huge because it gives you something to strive forward, right? Like if you can't expect a certain result if you don't have a goal in mind to quantify or categorize that expectation. So, you know, for me personally, when I got into this profession, I set the goal of want to be a coordinator by 35 and a head coach by 40. And so as I was going through my career, I'm trying to hit benchmarks to try to attain those goals. And so that way I could quantify my expectations. And so, you know, ended up being a coordinator when I was 32 and ended up being a head coach when I was 36. So definitely had, but you have something out in front of you that you're trying to strive for. So, you know, whether it's in spring ball, you know, the goal is to develop depth in certain position groups. And so those position groups, from a staff's perspective, you know, dive into these are the expectations on how we develop depth, right? And as you get into the season, you know, is it a win-loss goal? Is it we want to be able to run the football for this many yards or throw the ball for this many yards? So that way you can set up your progress and your practice habits to try to achieve those expectations. So, you know, I think without a goal in mind, it is definitely difficult to try to categorize or quantify expectation.
I understand that, and it sounds like, I mean, from a fundamental and foundation perspective, right? You start somewhere, right, and you start to understand, and I say this all the time, especially when it comes to money, right? Short-term goals. Mm-hmm. What are we trying to achieve in the short, right? And then once we kind of hit that where our trajectory is there, and we're meeting that short-term goal, of course, you spread it out a little bit, right? What is our midterm? And then we start to look at our long-term goal, and from a dollars and cents perspective, you know, I always want people to understand this is a long game, right? Like your season, right? I mean, it is a long game. We start somewhere, and that is a game one, right? Did we hit the benchmark, right? How are we measuring success, and what could we do better? I'm sure you got your guys in here, and you guys are looking at film. We're sitting down with a client, and we're looking at portfolio matrix and analytics. Mm-hmm. And so some of the data behind that, we're only as strong as that, right? What did we do really well? How could we have made it better? And then how do we manage the expectation moving forward? And so, you know, how do you, you know, it's different for me, but my client, we got a lot of people, right? I mean, we got a lot of people, we got a lot of clients, and we're trying to manage holistically not just the goal, but the feeling, the emotion behind it. And so when you're managing your players, I mean, you got all kinds of personalities, right? And these are young kids, right? And they got a lot of ego. And so when you're managing them, how are you trying to get them in one place so they can listen all at the same time to play uniformly, if you will?
Yeah, so that's one of the things that you talk about ego. One of the things that we pride ourselves in this building is not having ego.
It's hard to do.
Very hard to do. And so I think you have to pick and choose, when you're trying to bring them together and when you allow them to be themselves.
Sure.
And so I think, in order to get the most out of an individual, they have to be comfortable in their own skin. Yeah. And so we're trying to create an environment where people are just that. They're comfortable with who they are and confident in who they are, so that when we do get into a team setting, now it's time to rein in and let's dive into the details of what it takes to be unified.
Sure.
So that is something that we work on daily here.
Have to.
That you talked about, having short-term goals and how that affects your long-term goals. In football there are different seasons, right? You have your in-season mode, you got your out-of-season mode, you got winter workouts, you got spring ball, you got summer workouts, and so you have different goals for each time period, with the ultimate goal of winning a championship at the end of the season in mind, right? And so sometimes in those short terms, we don't necessarily put a quantitative mark as a goal, right? Like we want to achieve X, Y, Z. It's more, we determine success in spring by improving every day. Well, what does that look like? It's, for us, it's, we don't want to see the same mistakes or practice 2 that we saw practice 1.
Got to get better.
And so those, so then you're steadily improving so that you're heading toward your long-term goal with that short-term goal in mind.
Absolutely.
So definitely some correlations there.
Absolutely, and that's what it comes down to, right? It comes down to trust, leadership, confidence, and they gotta know who's in charge, right? And they have to put trust in that so they can carry that mission forward.
Today's tip of the week: for stronger financial health. The need for long-term care can come at any age due to a disabling disease, car crash, brain injury, or other disabling event. Consider taking these 5 steps today to be in a better position to cope in case something happens tomorrow. Make sure trusted family members know where to find personal and financial documents. Set up direct deposits for income and benefit checks. And consider automatic payments of important and recurring bills. Also, have a durable power of attorney document prepared to give someone you trust the authority to handle your finances and health decisions if you become incapacitated. Finally, speak with a financial planner or an insurance agent to make sure you are properly insured to cover your expenses. That's today's tip of the week for stronger financial health.
You're watching the Retirement Halftime Show, powered by ReJoyce Financial.
Thank you for watching the Retirement Halftime Show. If you have questions about today's show, give us a call, send us a text, or go to our website. Most importantly, maintain your lead in retirement. I'm Alexander Joyce, and I'll see you next time.